your favorite villain?
My favorite villain? I kind of like Diddy.
When people say I'm a troll, I say,
I don't know why you're saying I'm trolling people. I'm doing what you've conditioned me to.
Jaguar Wright delivered a fierce response to 50 Cent's documentary focused on Diddy, arguing that the Netflix release barely scratches the surface of what truly happened, and insisting that audiences were shown only a carefully limited version of the story. She maintains that crucial details, recorded statements, and defining industry moments were deliberately excluded, not by accident, but by design, with deeper material intentionally withheld. According to Wright, the platform chose to stop short of revealing the full scope, leaving much of the broader truth unseen and the most serious questions still unanswered.
It was done too well. It left out too many things.
So can you speak on Curtis Jackson? 50 Cent said that this is the first one.
I'm sure.
There's hundreds of hours of more footage.
I'm sure there was hundreds of hours of shit that was confiscated from all of Diddy's homes in that HSI raid that never made it to the trial. I wonder where it made it.
Jaguar Wright came forward with a blistering reaction to 50 Cent's documentary centered on Diddy, arguing that the Netflix version barely grazes the real story and presents only a controlled fragment of what actually exists. She insists the material shown is just a fraction of the full archive, claiming that complete recordings, critical statements, and pivotal industry-altering moments were deliberately excluded. According to Wright, those deeper layers were intentionally held back, with the platform choosing not to dig further, leaving a significant portion of the broader truth concealed and unresolved.
Would you call the documentary educational, informational, entertaining? What would you say this documentary?
Gaslighting. And it's sad because there's a lot of stuff in there that's true. But there's enough.
Jaguar Wright has come forward with a hard-hitting new interview, claiming she uncovered what was missing from 50 Cent's documentary after digging beyond what viewers were shown. She explains that once she finished watching, she contacted Gene Deal, a longtime security insider who operated close to Diddy and understood the inner workings better than most. According to Jaguar, Gene described a pattern of disturbing behavior, pressure, protected inner circles, and situations quietly handled out of public view, making his absence from a project framed as a major reckoning stand out sharply. She says that speaking with him filled in critical gaps, revealing deeper context and details she believes were deliberately left out, suggesting the final release was softened for audiences rather than exposing the full reality behind the scenes.
It isn't over. I agree. Like, that's the thing. The story's not even being told. Because in order to tell the actual whole story, you would have to include everyone that is involved. But no, this is about saving the industry and blaming it all on Diddy. Saving the industry and blaming it all on Diddy. Okay, Diddy's going to jail. He's going to do his time. I don't know what that appeal is looking like right now. Because see, the one thing that all of this documentary shit is doing is definitely fucking up his possibility for an appeal to get out early. Especially with the judge and them and the appeal board having to look at the footage of him sitting there with Mark Agnifilo, pretty much working on how to fix the trial.
And for him to be watching the feds watching him.
Yeah, film me, the feds. Wow.
Film me.
Jaguar Wright argues that the timing of the documentary's release, combined with its heavy reliance on familiar stories, immediately raised red flags for her, suggesting it was designed less to expose truth and more to control how the narrative is received. She says the repeated use of old clips, recycled incidents, and already accepted industry talking points offered no real revelations, instead steering attention in a safer direction. In her view, the film didn't break new ground but carefully shaped public perception, diverting focus away from deeper, more uncomfortable details and keeping the most critical information firmly out of reach.
They did what they needed to do in this documentary. The whole objective of this documentary was to blame it all on Diddy. The devil made me do it, blame it all on Diddy, and the rest of the industry is nothing like this. Like when Curtis Jackson sat there in his interview with Robin and sat there and said, I did this because I don't want people thinking that the hip hop community is okay with this kind of behavior. I don't want them thinking that, we're just going to be silent while all of this is going on. Like, we're okay with this kind of behavior. And my thing is So now you speaking for all of hip hop, and all of hip hop is uncomfortable with this. Meanwhile, you got people like Ja Rule who, on the low key, allegedly, Gene Deal has exposed for having his own nude tryst freak-offs with Diddy.
In that courtroom.
Do you think that hip-hop culture was on trial as much as Sean Combs was?
Look, if I didn't say anything, you would interpret it as the hip-hop is fine with his behaviors. There's no one else being vocal. So you would look at it and just say, because that mind your business, or let me not say nothing about nothing, or those things, it would allow the entire culture to register as if they're for that behavior.
If Sean Combs watches this, what do you think he's going to feel?
Like, wow, this is amazing. I think he's going to say this is the best documentary I've seen in a long time. Because you'll see people saying that. I mean, he may feel a different way about pieces and bits of it, but
Jaguar Wright highlights reports that major media outlets allegedly sat on footage tied to serious incidents involving Diddy and Cassie for years, questioning why real consequences only surfaced after the window for legal accountability had seemingly closed. She argues the documentary sidestepped this issue entirely, glossing over what she considers the most critical point. If there were claims of a broader investigation surrounding Diddy, why weren't other influential figures, close associates, and key decision-makers examined as part of that narrative? In her view, by avoiding those questions, the film left the larger system and structure behind the situation largely untouched and unexplored.
He announced he was going to be doing the documentary December 2023 with Netflix. And the star footage that you use to get people to re-upload or resubscribe to Netflix to make this the _1 in their TV shows division for almost 2 weeks straight, beating out Stranger Things. How much stranger is that?
I'm not Beckham.
This footage didn't even exist when you said you were going to be doing this documentary. So we've got a videographer, a road videographer that has this very, very, very explosive, very explosive footage of him literally sitting on camera, planning how to go after survivors, how to poison the jury pool, how to fix his trial in advance before he's even arrested. I mean, like, is anybody not forgetting when Mark Agnifilo was sitting there talking to the sons in the hallway, and they're sitting there filming, and he's sitting up there, yeah, well, see, what we got to do is we got to go and we got to put countersuits on all of these people. We have to create lawsuits ourselves. He's sitting there talking about creating lawsuits to affect public perception.
Jaguar Wright challenges what she sees as the documentary's biggest hook, the claim of unreleased footage that 50 Cent said he had secured, noting that when the project was first announced, he reportedly didn't even have access to that material. She argues this timeline raises serious questions about how key details were known in advance, suggesting the rollout felt planned rather than unfolding naturally. In her view, this casts the film as less of an honest effort to inform and more of a carefully structured production, where select elements were highlighted to steer attention, giving audiences a guided narrative instead of the complete,
Going to spare no cost in doing this because he wanted to tell the story, and he wanted to tell the story like it was supposed to be told and everything like that. I said, yeah, okay. So then the director, I gotta get her name, man, because it don't even sound. I want to put her on blast because she was telling me, you know, she was saying to me that what I was asking for was crazy, and they wasn't spending money like that. I'm talking about, you got footage, you got clothing, you got. I was doing footage. I had pictures, all the stuff that I had. You know, you could figure out a way to pay them, brother, and stuff like that. And then I was telling her about some prices that I've already received, and I had the invoices to show it. And then she was calling me like I was lying. I'm like, yo, who do you think you talking to? You know what I'm saying? And she was talking about, you know, there's no way nobody paid. Nobody what? I say, first of all you people come with these documentaries and stuff. The first thing you tell me, y'all tell these people out here that y'all don't pay, and y'all pay. If you could make a picture look like $10,000-$15,000, you know what I'm saying? You can sit here and tell me that you're gonna pay me for my time sitting right down here with y'all. You understand? So then, you know, one thing led to another, and I was like, all right, well then, you know, F you, you know, I spoke to 50, and then she said 50, and this is exact words that came out her mouth. 50 does not determine what goes in and go out of this documentary. And he definitely don't pay. He determine what somebody get paid. It's not his documentary like that. I was like, oh, so if it's not his documentary and I spoke to him like that, I don't need to be doing nothing with you because I'm doing this on the strength of him. But you gonna pay me if the 50 didn't have the power to do anything, but they using his name to like push the whole documentary. And that's what it was about. So that's why you don't see a cameo other than the pictures they used of me on the film in the documentary. I got like 3 or 4 pictures in the documentary that I've seen of myself. You know, some people say they saw more, but I know three different times where I was certain places that you could actually see me in the documentary, and that's the only thing you're going to get. But the stories that they told in the documentary, bro, come on. They could have went a whole lot deeper. They could have did a whole lot more.
Gene Deal ultimately walked away from the documentary after realizing that 50 Cent did not have full creative control over the project. As someone who possessed key records and first-hand knowledge, Gene says a long conversation with 50 made it clear that decisions over footage approval, compensation, and which voices would make the final cut were controlled entirely by Netflix and the production team. Once he understood the story would be filtered and restricted rather than presented in full, he chose not to participate, believing that the deeper, more revealing version of events would never be allowed to be told.
You got a Diddy leading up to him getting arrested, and how you feel about all that, man?
Well, what I feel about the documentary, they left a whole lot of key things out. If they was going to do something and they're going to say in the reckoning of Sean Combs, the reckoning, or Diddy, the reckoning and stuff like that, it should have been a lot of people that we lost because of him. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't only Big. It wasn't only Tupac. You understand? For the atmosphere that he put those kids in, you got a guy named Anthony Wolf Jones, who was from Bad Boy from its conception as doing security and being one of the financiers of Puff having to have some money to keep Big and Craig Mack around before he got to Clyde Davis. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't able to tell that story because they didn't have no intel on that story or what went down, or they didn't do their investigations right, which he also led up to the reason why Wolf ain't here today. You understand? They didn't tell that story. They didn't tell a story about Jessica Rosenbaum, who was at the City College situation.
Gene Deal fully backed Jaguar Wright's claims, stressing that he wasn't offering speculation but relying on material he had preserved for years, including recordings, photos, documents, and detailed records. He says all of this was shared with the production team, yet when he asked for fair compensation for his time, effort, and the resources he brought forward, his concerns were brushed aside. According to Gene, that moment made their intentions clear, They weren't interested in revealing the complete truth, only in placing someone on camera briefly to maintain engagement, control the narrative, and keep the most critical details from ever reaching the public.
Imagine if they had had any testimony from Little Rod and the footage that he had from that incident, that firearm incident where the guy G was damn near mortally wounded and was losing his life, and the footage that he had from that. Can you imagine if that had been shown to the jury?
I can, man.
Like, why not? If it was available for them to get it from Little Rod to put it in a documentary, and Little Rod hasn't gone to trial yet, then why in God's name hasn't why did any of this make it to the feds?
That's a great question. Why didn't they even subpoena or talk to?
50, Curtis Jackson announced in December of 2023, after Cassie's lawsuit came out, that he was going to be doing his own documentary. Isn't it very clever that all of this, alarming and stuff didn't come out of his documentary until almost 6 months after his verdict came in? 2 months after he had been sentenced? It was almost as if they were holding the documentary to not get in the way of his trial. Like, that's the thing that's tripping me out when it's coming to all of this Curtis Jackson praise that's coming on. And there's a lot of people. If he didn't get paid, usually it's like 90 days before you start, you got to put in an invoice and all of that stuff. Like, his business machine was still businessing. You telling me nobody around him. That sounds like a setup to me.
Sounds like a setup.
It sounds like a setup to me. And when you think about the fact that, another conversation that we've been having, a lot of people aren't paying attention to the money behind the machine. BlackRock, Vanguard, owners of Diageo, the company that Diddy tried to go after and had to settle out of court for, with sealed findings, and nobody really knows how that turned out before his life got turned upside down and HSI came in raiding, grabbing all kinds of evidence and all kinds of stuff. They're part owners in Netflix. Did you know that?
That's information.
The very company that has allegedly been going out of their way to work with the higher ups to make Diddy's life a living hell have a stake in the platform that's now ruining what's left of his reputation worldwide.
Jaguar Wright and Gene Deal argue that portions of the material featured in the documentary may have carried serious legal implications, claiming that even Diddy's legal team was allegedly unaware certain conversations had been recorded. They suggest that if evidence hinting at efforts to influence public perception had been presented to a jury, it could have added weight to federal scrutiny. What troubles them most, they say, is how the documentary appears to reframe the origin and handling of that footage, leaving viewers unsure of what was genuine versus selectively presented, while the full context and potential significance remain carefully out of view.
This is awful that Diddy owes his life to Mark Agnifilo, literally his life, because he could have gotten life in prison were it not for Mark Agnifilo, his defense lawyer, who had a brilliant strategy. And Diddy screwed him over when he hired this videographer to chronicle his life without telling Mark Agnifilo that when Diddy and Mark were on the phone, this videographer was recording what Mark clearly expected to be an attorney-client privileged relationship. Now, it is true that the client holds that privilege, the lawyer doesn't, but Mark's clear expectation was that this was a private conversation. These were private conversations, and that he and Diddy could talk openly, and Mark could talk to Diddy not just as a client, but as a person, and tried to guide him in a time leading up to his arrest. And unbeknownst to Mark Agnifilo, Diddy has got this guy recording the conversation as he's sitting there saying, "You are screwing this up. You are messing up this case. We're losing." And knowing that that's on tape.
Critics argue that the one area the documentary clearly impacted was Diddy's position on appeal, as newly surfaced footage appeared to reveal behind-the-scenes discussions and strategic exchanges involving his legal team, potentially placing him at a disadvantage. The situation grew more serious with claims that some conversations with attorneys were recorded without their knowledge, leading to frustration within his legal circle over private discussions becoming public. Taken together, these revelations fueled the sense that the release carried consequences extending far beyond entertainment, with implications that reached deep into legal territory rather than ending with the documentary itself.